Welcome to this week's Ancient Amnesia Podcast.
Hey you guys, this is Dave with Ancient Amnesia. I was looking at some stuff today that's going to blow your mind, but first of all, we're going to get kind of started talking about flood myths. Whatever religion you are, or however you have grown up and heard the tales that parents and teachers tell you when you go to church, they're all going to tell you about the flood. Doesn't matter what religion you are, you have one. So basically, I started looking a little bit today. It's cold out, so I started looking at some videos and reading some websites, and came across this pretty interesting guy named Irving Finkel. But first, I'd like to say, hey, Josh, how's it going, man? And nice to see you tonight. Let's see kind of what you think about flood myths. I mean, what's their relevance in a religion, and the number of them that we see out there in the world. Should we take them seriously? And are features of them, like we're going to learn about tonight, really important, or are they purely metaphorical?
I mean, if you have an entire planet of cultures, that are saying, yeah, some big flood happened, I think it probably happened. I mean, you have cultures that have zero knowledge of each other across the entire world talking about, an ancient flood that covered the planet. Everybody has perspectives. If the planet to the Romans was a lot bigger area than the planet to smaller tribes and things, so it could be localized floods. It could be larger floods. So some of these myths are probably localized. Some of them are larger, bigger floods. The research that we've been posting on, we've been talking about, is looking at the science of, where these myths may have come from. And we know that there's something big happened during the end of the last ice age. So obviously there was a lot of flood and meltwater, and there could have been cometary impacts, and there could have been solar activity. And this would have changed the entire landscape of humanity at whatever level it existed across the planet. So let's look at the science and find out whether we can trace an actual flood, and then realize that, well, these guys are talking about something that really happened. And so every culture is going to have a different situation with that particular event. If you have an advanced culture that can prepare, that can track that it's about to happen, and maybe they saw it coming, then you may have a story like, Noah, or and Noah itself, is a retelling of others, Sumerian and older myths. But maybe this guy did have time to construct something to protect, in the Atlantean kind of mythos, we know that these guys were like aware, and they were kind of getting ready and things like that. So yeah, I think the science is in. We know that it probably happened. And so what I think is interesting, just go and look at all the myths. So what are they saying? And they didn't speak like we do today. They're going to create stories and parables and things like that. And I think that's what we're going to try to do today, is just kind of look at what's being said and unpack it a little bit so it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, it's there's probably a lot of features that have to be separated, and with the language differences and the overlapping references, because the Aztecs and all the people that were across pretty much the entire Americas as well had flood myths. The Indians. What's interesting to me is that I'm going to go ahead and share this, you guys. This is a really cool website here called Mytho Religio, and basically it is laying out the 15 flood myths similar to the story of Noah. So of course you're going to start out with number 1, the story of Noah. The Judeo-Christian Bible. The Islamic Quran has Nu. Manu is the Hindu. A lot of these guys, all these floods that they encountered, were described in different ways. They happened at similar times. You have the Buddhists, the tales of the merchants at sea. We'll have to touch on that, maybe some sea people. And basically when you look at it, it just continues on. Everybody had their story, like you said. What's neat about it to me is that although you have all these stories, and I'll put the link to this in the description for the YouTube video when we do this, so you guys can actually click on this and read all of this yourselves. But what's really neat about all this is that, everybody had it. Everybody had a character. But there were different features. Like you said, there were some Atlantean ideas. And you would figure, in my opinion, the Atlanteans were sort of masters of the sea. So a flood may not be such a big deal to them. Why would they build an ark? Why wouldn't they have a ship already or a large vessel that would work for, the purpose they needed it? But yeah, it's just really cool to look at all these different flood myths that come together, and they're probably all related to, like you said, a period of time where there were cometary impacts, earthquakes, volcanic activity, and over that period of time, there was a lot of writing going on, and people were writing down everything they saw and heard and experienced. So yeah, like you said, it definitely happened. How it happened, why it happened. Josh, you already had brought up something about the seed bank. So I'm going to kind of click on this here. The frozen ark, they call it. So you brought that up, but what do you think the relevance of this is? Were they able to maybe store genetic material back then in frozen form? Did they have some sort of technology that might have been parallel to today, what they're doing here up in I think it's the UK or up by Norway somewhere?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that even early times, even squirrels prepare for the winter by burying seeds for the times that they go bad. So then animals do this. We're just more advanced versions. So we've been storing seeds and putting in kind of vital life-saving foods in the ground to prepare tribes for droughts and things like that. And that's kind of that's kind of where all this idea comes from. There's a cosmic ecology out there. We are a part of a galactic sea, and it has its own weather and its own cycles. And so some cultures were smart enough to figure this out and may have known when these cycles were and when we cross over certain patterns. So if that's true and they were able to, then they're going to prepare at whatever level of advancement that they've reached at the time. There's no reason for us to not believe there was an advanced civilization, and we're not going to say that it was like ours, but it could have had the ability to maybe take certain animals and I don't know. I mean, some people believe there was genetic manipulation going on back there. There's a whole segment of this whole Sumerian genetic manipulation, or these guys having. So is the Ark basically like the modern one, where they're taking the DNA of these things and storing them for later release? I mean, we're doing that today with those systems that we're just showing you. So I don't know if it wasn't that way, then very simply they would just try to construct a certain craft that could at least protect people from a massive flood. Now there's certain cataclysms that it doesn't matter how advanced the culture is, they cannot survive it. Today, if we had a Jurassic impact, we would all just be gone. So it doesn't matter whether we're flying around in space, we're still at risk. So we've all been here long enough at the 200,000 year mark of modern humans to have probably witnessed a few close calls in terms of just wiping us completely out. So I think that's where these myths come from. They come from these moments where we cross over these galactic areas in the galaxy, that there's just lots of comets coming in, lots of asteroids, and lots of debris that's slamming in. And at that point, people are starting to kind of prepare and realize this is happening, very often. So they're probably putting a lot of resources to try to protect their people in the future. We're all figuring this stuff out now. So this is kind of coming in with the new research with, the cometary impact research and things like that. So this ties in really well to what these myths may have been saying about what was happening in the sky back then. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Well, to me, there's like we said, there's different features about all this. I'm an engineer, so for me, it's the engineering feature. And I came up on this guy Irving Finkel today. And I'd kind of seen him in the past, and knew that he was an interesting guy, and he was the, I guess you would call it the gatekeeper of the Sumerian and Babylonian tablets in the UK. So basically, what he's doing is he's coming up with these different little pieces that are giving him different little parts of the story. And for me, it's pretty cool, because you're looking at something that is as big as his hand. This is Irving Finkel here, by the way. And he's finding this thing that's as big as like a cell phone. It's got two sides. The other side is really damaged. And he says on this thing here, he just found this little piece, this little feature that says that there's a good chance that the Ark was circular. So to me, it's like, okay, well, this could be a huge piece of the puzzle that could answer a lot of questions, whether it existed or not, whether it's feasible or not, whether it was accurate to the local style of a boat. I mean, you wouldn't build a boat completely different from any boat you've ever seen. If you were building an Ark, you would build a bigger version of what you've seen in the area. And he did this research, and he found that in this area, they were actually building these round boats.
Arks could have been just a particular type of boat that saved, that people could, it's got a rescue boat, right? It's like a way for people
Sure.
to kind of.
And it was just Noah's Ark, that particular one that he put particular animals on or whatever. Yeah,
Right.
you can always find.
It could have been local, right? Local animals. Just get, if we was today, we would say, get the chickens, get the cows, get the, get the certain animals that are going to be able to reproduce quickly so that we can survive, and get them all in there. And let's
food. You want chickens. You want pigs.
Right. You want the thing. Yeah. And these things, they serve, a pig produces 40 pups a year. So, you have, you have an animal that can reproduce pretty quickly. You got 100 pigs. Well, you got 400 pigs in a year, right? If they all start breeding, so you quickly reproduce and replenish pretty easily. So it does make sense that, if we were, okay, we see this coming. Yeah. We know it's heading. Let's all get on our arks. Let's get our animals in. Let's get all the people on. Let's get on the boat. Let's weather the storm. Let's
almost like a floating island.
Yeah, it's a floating island. So I don't think it's a ridiculous idea at all. And all other myths talk about them having boats that save them. Right. So, let's quit superimposing, things on this, and just realize that these people are telling a story, and not all of it has to be completely 100% accurate. Remember, if this did happen, it happened the thousands of years prior to it being written down. So, give some people credit over millennia.
Sure.
That'd be like us trying to decode ancient Sumerian text and then write the story again. It's going to be really, really hard.
Yeah. Well, look at this thing. I mean, it's, got like an easy 12-foot freeboard. It's just bobbing on top of the lake. It can't be drawing maybe 2 feet. It's got a structure on top. It's got storage inside. They're towing it with a boat, of course, through this area so everybody can see it. But and this is one they built in scale. This is maybe a tenth of the size of the real one. And these people put this money up, and he actually gave his blessing. He said, "Yeah, go ahead and do it using these, things that I deciphered from this little tiny tablet, and see if it comes out." And by God, they went and built this damn thing, and it's like, holy crap, man! Look at it. I mean, it's way up in the water. It's got plenty of room in it, and down below there's another walkway where you can actually go down and get out of the elements of this thing. But it's just really cool how they did this, and it's all of these little tiny stones, that offer almost no information on there. And guys like him, they take it and they just build it. They build from that. And the fact that these people actually did this and the thing floated, and they said they would have been able to put an enormous amount of livestock in there, and what you do with all the poop and all that stuff. If you've got a few people on there working hard, they're going to empty that, and they're going to keep it fairly clean. You're only on there for, a couple of months. So yeah, it's, I think it definitely happened probably in a lot of places.
Well, when you go to a water park, what's the thing that they give you to brace the storm, the man-made storms that you have fun on, right? They give you a circular inner tube. Why? Because it's the most stable thing for you to be floating on the water with. It's circular, so it's completely balanced in every way, right? There's no, heavy side, light side, and if you're in the center, so you're the stone that keeps it in.
Exactly.
So look at that, right? You get the stone in the center that keeps it in. So, it makes a lot of sense to have something circular. Yeah, but lifeboats are all that way too. So, it makes a lot of sense that it'd be circular. It's going to be protected in every way and be able to do its thing as the storm just goes crazy. But yeah, I mean, people definitely need to realize that they always try to superimpose kind of the modern idea of things onto these ancient past. These ideas. And one thing to remember is that in the Sumerian text, it's the oldest. It's the oldest compilation of information that we have that has the least amount deciphered, right? So we have
Right.
tens of thousands of tablets that have yet to even be deciphered, because it's really hard to decipher these things. And
Well, cuneiform is it really it's kind of like an IQ test. It takes a certain person with a certain mindset and a certain eye to look at this stuff and be able to really cut through all the time that it takes to decipher it. I mean, otherwise it's just it's just like way too slow. Until you find someone like this guy, and this guy, he's real good, and he even found that some of the math in there he wasn't really sure of. What was real peculiar was I think he said it was the amount of rope needed to go all the way around this thing was 14,400 of some sort of measurement from back then that they had. And he looked at the crowd, and all these college students were out there, and they were just sitting there, and he's like, 14,400, doesn't that mean anything to you? And they all just kind of, with the 144 and all that. And then nobody said anything, and he's like, okay, well, I'll just continue then. And I'm like sitting there going,
right, right.
Holy crap,
exactly.
man, there's sacred geometry blended into this thing. And he called a mathematician who came out and looked at this and worked with him on it. And they came up with a set of dimensions they needed to build this thing. So what's really cool about this story to me, I didn't tell you earlier why I kind of picked this, was because of our science and spirituality thing. I wanted to show that at some point, we were talking about last week in the podcast that science and spirituality have grown apart. And that's why answers like this that pop up are so important, because they bring it back together. They show that you have to use science, and you have to have an understanding of how to, store things and how to seal this thing so it, isn't going to sink, and, you also have to have the spirituality to understand that the reason people wrote this stuff and these stories isn't because, they were being told to by some omnipresent God or anything, that they were actually living through it and experiencing it. And that was what built their religion and built their respect for whatever they call God,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, God is the forces above them, which means the comets that are coming down and smashing, those are gods coming to destroy them. The sun that's giving them life and growing their food and all that, that's the God that's, giving them life. It's just science. They're just calling it, they're deifying it, but because they rightly need to. It is the thing that created us. It is the thing that sustains us. And these are the things that give us, we're not just apart from nature. We are, subject to nature. And that's what happens whenever, when the earth behaves a certain way, well, the gods are angry. Makes total sense to me. These forces create me, these forces sustain me, and they're not happy right now. So I need to do something to make them happy, and I'll do whatever I can to make them happy because, I want to survive and I want to continue my family's survival. So yeah, they're in tune, they're listening, they're trying to measure, they're trying to figure out, they're trying to calculate, they're trying to listen. And we think that's silly, but it's going to be our demise. Like Randall Carlson said, if we don't start pointing all this money and all this tech at the stars and figuring out our cosmic ecology, we're gonna be in for a pretty heavy slap whenever it comes, and we're gonna be back to building arcs, and we're gonna be back to trying to figure out how do we survive this. And if it's big enough, no one's going to survive it. And what you showed us there with the whole DNA capsules that they're putting in frozen tundras and things like that, that's the only thing that's going to be there to survive. And it may take 10,000 or 7,000 years for humanity to pick itself back up to find those things and go, what the hell is this crap? And they're going to be looking at that like it's Sumerian text, and they're going to go,
exactly.
And if there's any writing that looks like it came from Mars, it's definitely Sumerian text. I mean,
well, and we have Vimanas right now, basically. So, any recording of, our jet planes and our rockets and, stuff we're using in space, we're at that level, that the Hindus talked about. We have Vimanas, we have flying carpets, we have multiple gods in the form of, satellites or whatever the gods can be.
That's right.
The forces in nature, of course, are one. We have a lot of different gods that we got to answer to. Yeah. That's where science and spirituality need to come back together, is kind of start to learn how to answer those questions.
Yeah, we definitely need to realize that the ancients knew more about certain aspects of reality than we have yet to remember. Right. And that's what our goal is here at Ancient Amnesia, is to remember the past, because they have answers for us going to the future. And if anything, what we're learning today is, hey, we could go at any moment. And in fact, there is a season of us getting hit by these things. And we need to make sure that we're looking at the calendar, because it may be coming up any moment now, and we need to prepare for it. We are at the level now that we could probably protect ourselves more than at any time in our, at least this cycle. So we have the technology. We should need to be serious about looking so that we can figure this out. So yeah, that was really good, Dave. I'm glad you brought the Ark information up. People need to go and check it out.
Information.
There's an Ark of information, storage of information. So yeah, that was awesome.
Pretty cool. Yeah, I thought it would be kind of something cool to tie into last week, to bring that around. And, it's just, there's so many ways to do that. So we're going to be doing this again, I'm sure. So, thanks you guys for listening. Thanks for your input, Josh. That was awesome, man. I mean, that was a great discussion I've been waiting to have all day.
Yeah, guys, chime in, go to the discussion group and tell us what you think. That's really where we're going to try to pull a lot of people that are serious about discussing these ideas. We've had some really good members posting some awesome stuff, and we're going to be pulling information from them to do shows on. So if you have something that you want us to talk about, if you want to come on the show, go to an Ancient Amnesia discussion group and become a member, and let us know what you're thinking about, what you know, and we'll start the discussion there. But yeah, we really want you guys to be involved. So I appreciate you stopping by.
Cool deal, man. Well, cheers, you guys. Thanks for listening.